A world divided, the Iron Curtain rises, the Cold War, a time of tension, a clash of ideologies. It was a global struggle between two superpowers, the capitalist United States and the communist Soviet Union. For the Soviet Union, the Cold War was a fight for survival, a struggle to secure its place in a world hostile to its very existence. The Second World War had ravaged the Soviet Union, millions lay dead, cities were in ruins. Yet, from the ashes of war, the Soviet spirit remained unbroken. Under the iron fist of Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union rebuilt. It created a vast military-industrial complex, a shield against the perceived capitalist threat. The Soviet people, hardened by war, embraced the communist ideal. They believed in a future free from exploitation and inequality. The West, however, saw the Soviet Union as a menacing expansionist force. Fear and mistrust poisoned relations between East and West. Showdowns on the world stage, from Cuba to space. The Cold War was a conflict fought on many fronts. Proxy wars raged in Korea and Vietnam. Espionage networks operated in the shadows. Propaganda machines churned out their competing narratives. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 almost tipped the world into nuclear war. The Soviet Union, led by the volatile Nikita Khrushchev, placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. The world held its breath as the two superpowers stood on the brink. The space race was another dramatic arena of the Cold War. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit Earth. It was a stunning technological feat that shocked the West. The Soviets had won the first round of the space race, and the race for technological superiority was on. Men of Steel, leaders of the Soviet Bear. The Cold War was a clash of ideologies, but it was also a battle of personalities. On the Soviet side, a trio of leaders left their indelible mark on this era. Joseph Stalin, the Man of Steel, was the architect of the Soviet Union's post-war recovery. He was a ruthless dictator who ruled with an iron fist. He transformed the Soviet Union into an industrial and military giant, but at a terrible human cost. Nikita Khrushchev, Stalin's successor, was a complex and contradictory figure. He denounced Stalin's crimes and initiated a period of de-Stalinization. He pursued a policy of peaceful coexistence with the West, but also presided over the Cuban Missile Crisis. Mikhail Gorbachev, the last Soviet leader, tried to reform the Soviet system. His policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, ultimately contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Section 4. The Soviet Way, Shaping a World Order. Throughout the Cold War, the Soviet Union sought to reshape the world in its image. It supported communist movements and revolutions across the globe, from Cuba to Vietnam. It promoted a socialist model of development as an alternative to Western capitalism. The Soviet Union's influence extended far beyond its borders. It provided economic and military aid to developing countries. It championed the cause of anti-colonialism and national liberation movements. Its actions shaped the geopolitical landscape of the post-war world. However, the Soviet system was inherently flawed. Its rigid, centrally planned economy stifled innovation and efficiency. Its suppression of dissent and human rights created a climate of fear and repression. Ultimately, the Soviet Union's internal contradictions contributed to its downfall. Section 5. Echoes of the Cold War, a legacy etched in time. The Cold War may be over, but its legacy continues to shape global politics. The collapse of the Soviet Union left the United States as the world's sole superpower. But the world is no longer bipolar. New powers, such as China, are challenging the established order. The Cold War also left behind a legacy of mistrust and suspicion. The threat of nuclear annihilation may have receded, but the dangers of nuclear proliferation remain. The world is still grappling with the consequences of the Cold War's ideological battles and geopolitical rivalries. The Cold War was a defining epoch in human history. It was a time of great peril and even greater courage. The Soviet Union, for all its flaws, played a pivotal role in shaping the course of the 20th century. Understanding the Soviet perspective is essential for comprehending the complexities of the Cold War and its enduring impact on the world today.